On the inside, I was falling apart. I couldn't sleep. I felt like rather than resting, I had this narrative that told me that if I had the time to rest or to lay around, then I wasn't good enough. If I had the time to worry about the future, I wasn't working hard enough. Because I associated rest with being lazy, I never did that. I never allowed myself to rest. I always pushed for more. And I just kept on filling up that gap between work and where I didn't feel productive enough with more ways to stress myself out. You're listening to another episode of Give Yourself Some Leeway with me, your host, Eugene Lee. It's nice to be back in Switzerland and have my usual setup and not to be recording from my phone again. Um, but today's episode was brought to you by someone telling me about how to downregulate their stress in meetings or in a stressful workplace. Because it's not always possible. You don't always get the time to downregulate yourself if you're going through a busy day. And to a point, that's true if you don't have the right tools, because your body is always keeping that score. If you have late nights, skipping lunch, every moment you push through until you have nothing left, it's all being tracked, not only physically and mentally, but biologically and chemically in your body. It's being tracked by your nervous system. Over time, those stress hormones build up. You've got cortisol, adrenaline, this constant hum of always being on alert. And this is what nobody tells you. You can bring those levels down. And it's not by taking a weekend off or not by having that 2 week vacation once a year. You can reduce those stress levels with small daily habits that signal to your body you're safe. You can rest now. And today I want to share three of those habits that you can build that can help to downregulate that stress that you feel on a day-to-day basis. Simple, science-backed, and yes, they actually work. So the reason I'm bringing this up, it was a great conversation because it reminded me of how I was just like this only a few years ago, about 6 years ago when I burnt out. And I had a lot of trouble with sleeping. On the outside, it looked great, that I had a good job, good reputation, any factual success metrics that I was chasing. It looked like I had it all from the outside, but I was really falling apart. On the inside, I was falling apart. I couldn't sleep. I felt like rather than resting, I had this narrative that told me that if I had the time to rest or to lay around, then I wasn't good enough. If I had the time to worry about the future, I wasn't working hard enough. Because I associated rest with being lazy, I never did that. I never allowed myself to rest. I always pushed for more. And I just kept on filling up that gap between work and where I didn't feel productive enough with more ways to stress myself out. I just kept on filling myself up with more stress. And that stuck with me. In hindsight, that sticks with me that I stuck with more stress because I was familiar with how that cortisol level of alertness felt. But stress isn't just a feeling. When your body experiences stress, that's a physical cycle. And it needs to be completed in order to down-regulate that stress, to down-regulate that cortisol level. So let's talk about cortisol for a second, because cortisol is the primary stress hormone. And in small doses, it can be helpful. Cortisol spikes in the morning when you get out of bed. It helps you to get out of bed, focus, and get your day started. But when it stays elevated day after day, if you don't regulate it, then cortisol can start to get damaging. It damages the quality of your sleep. It can affect your immune system. It can affect your mood. and your ability to think clearly. So, chronic burnout is essentially a cortisol problem. So, it's not a goal to eliminate stress. No, we don't talk about eliminating stress. When we talk about managing someone's stress, it's about helping them to complete the cortisol cycle, complete that loop so that your body can downregulate those cortisol levels. So, here are three science-backed ways that you can naturally reduce the amount of cortisol. The first one is movement. It's getting your body moving. Because when our ancestors would face a threat, when they're faced with fight, flight, whether they would need to run, to fight, to hide, to survive, their body is flooded with these stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, you name it. And movement was the natural way of completing that cycle because once you moved, then you could signal to your body that I took an action. The threat is over. We made it. And your cortisol level can drop and you can go into a more relaxed state. You don't need to go to the gym. You don't need to have a high intensity training program to downregulate the stress. You can do this with a simple 10-minute walk outside of work. Just if you can, get it outside, fresh air, a bit of daylight, maybe in nature. Go for 10 minutes outside, out of the work environment. Maybe it's at home, you could be dancing in your kitchen. Even as simple as you see people do this a lot where they just shake their body and they just shake out their nerves. That physical action of shaking it out helps. It really does. It literally helps to shake out the stress from your body. But the key is not only doing it when you feel stressed or when you feel overwhelmed. The key is doing it daily, not once in a while, not when it just feels like it's all brimming to the surface. You need to do it as a daily practice. Think of it like brushing your teeth, but rather than brushing the plaque and the food out of your teeth, you're brushing the stress levels out of your body. The second practice is breathing with purpose. Now, most of us breathe. We breathe because we need to breathe to survive, but these are shallow little sips of air that we breathe. It's just enough to get by. But when we're stressed, we tend to have more shallow breaths because our body is sensing that danger is near. And this shallow breathing continues to signal that part of our brain that says we must be on high alert. We cannot relax enough to take deep, relaxed breaths because danger is in sight. It keeps our nervous system on high alert, having these short little sips of breath. Now, the opposite of that is slow, deep breathing. Breathing up into your chest, feeling it in your belly, and then exhaling. This slow, deep breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system. It's the rest and digest side of your brain. It tells your brain everything is okay. You can stand down. You're safe. And here's one simple technique that works really fast, and it's called box breathing because it's four equal sides. So you breathe in for four counts. You hold that breath for a count of four. Then you breathe out, you exhale for the same count of four. And then once you exhale that four, you hold again for four. And then you continue with another round of inhaling for four and so on. Do that for 4 rounds. Doesn't even take 2 minutes. And even in that, your heart rate will slow down. You'll feel the tension drop from your shoulders. You'll feel a lightness in your chest. This is a biological signal to your brain that you are safe. You can do this before going into a stressful meeting, before having a difficult conversation. You can do it when you wake up in the morning or before you go to bed at night. I have it as part of my wind down evening routine to help down regulate any stress that's built up in the day. Do it when you feel that familiar tension that's just rising in your chest, when you feel you need it most. But the importance is having it in your routine every day, that you can fit it in somewhere that it helps to down regulate the stress you're building up. It's not magic, it's not woo woo, it's in your biology. And it works every time. The third practice, which is probably the most underrated stress management tool that there is, because people dismiss it and downplay it a lot as if it's not important. But sleep is when your body does its deepest repair work. People dismiss sleep as, oh, I only need 4 hours of sleep. Sleep just gets in the way of me doing more today. But it's quite the opposite. Sleep is when your cortisol levels can reset, when your nervous system recovers after a long, hard day, when your brain clears out all the waste that is built up. And if you don't sleep enough, your cortisol levels don't drop. You carry them into the next day. And that makes everything harder. You're just going to build more cortisol on top of your previous day's work. And the more cortisol that you have, it might even make it more difficult to sleep the next day. It becomes a brutal cycle. And the fix isn't complicated, but it does require putting your sleep first, making it a priority in your routine, not a reward for getting so much done, not where you fall into bed because your body cannot take any more. One simple shift you can do is by picking a consistent wake up time and protecting that. Not a consistent bedtime, but the time that you wake up in the morning. Keep that consistent because your body's cortisol rhythm is anchored to when you choose to wake up. By keeping that consistent, even on your off days, even on your weekends, this can help to stabilize the whole stress cycle over time. It's one change in your routine, but it changes everything. How you build up stress, how you choose when you go to bed, if you want to get enough sleep, how you feel in the evenings, how tired you might feel can change if you have a consistent wake up time. The choices you make closer to bedtime may also change depending on how much you have achieved that day. All of this can change depending on your wake up time. One bonus stress management tool to help regulate all of these burnout related hormones is that connection, human connection, is something that threads all three of these practices together. When we move, when we go for that 10-minute walk, if we do it with other people, could be going for a walk with a friend or maybe as part of a group class, your oxytocin levels rise with the connection we make with others. And the oxytocin level rises and it causes our cortisol levels to drop. When we breathe and slow down, when we create that psychological safety for ourselves, we become more present with the people around us. When we sleep well, we're less reactive, less agitated. We're more patient with others and more available, more approachable. This helps deepen our relationship with other people, deepens that human connection. Every one of these habits is a doorway to fostering a deeper human connection. And building these connections, these real, warm, safe connections with others, is one of the most powerful stress regulators that we have. So don't underestimate that. I see it all the time in high achievers, and I was like that for such a long time that When I got in those high stressful situations, I would rather immerse myself in more work, immerse myself in more stressful situations than to be vulnerable and foster deeper connections with other people. I was doing the exact opposite of what my body needed to downregulate that stress. So, listening to your body is not always listening to what your body is familiar with, if it's familiar with stress all the time. But listening to your body, sometimes you have to practice tools that may feel foreign, like the breathing and fostering connections with other people. So don't underestimate the power of human connection. Now, from what we've covered so far, I want you to choose one. Let's look at those three habits of daily movement. It could be a 10-minute walk, the intentional breathing, that 4 rounds of box breathing, and consistent sleep, setting that wake up time. Choose one. Ask yourself, which one am I most missing right now? Not which one sounds the hardest, which one sounds the most challenging. Which one do you feel your body needs the most? Pick one and commit to that for the next 7 days. Commit to that 10-minute walk or commit to a consistent wake up time. That's all you need to do. Commit to one and be intentional, be consistent and track it. Reflect on it. See how it makes your body feel. Set a reminder every day if you need to. Tell someone so that you feel accountable to doing that every day for 7 days. I want to finish each of these episodes with something that you can take. I just love having at least one takeaway because people like the TLDR version or the TLDL version of these things. And one thing that hits heavy with these down-regulating and self-care activities is that when you burn out, it didn't happen overnight. It happened over an accumulation of changes over time, both in your capacity, in the expectations, in your narrative, in your capacity. All of these things changing over time eventually came to overwhelm and burnout. And in turn, your recovery from that won't happen overnight either. It will take effort, it will take time. And without intention, without additional effort that your body is not comfortable with, then that recovery will take longer or may not happen at all. I've had cases where people have taken over 10 years before they got out of that burnout cycle because it was so foreign to them. It was so unfamiliar that they kept on going back to the familiarity of the burnout cycle. But just think every time you move your body, even for 10 minutes, every time you slow down your breathing and breathe with intention, deep breaths with purpose, every time that you prioritize your sleep, you're sending your nervous system a message. I hear you. I've got you. We're safe. These messages compound over time with every rep, every time you reinforce that habit. All of these small acts of care, repeated daily, build into something profound. You're not broken. You're not a failure. Your levels are depleted. And that depletion can be reversed with intention, with effort, not by doing more, but by doing small acts of service to yourself that you can lead with kindness. It's about giving yourself that space to breathe, giving yourself that leeway, giving yourself that compassion, that self compassion to think, How can I be kinder to myself? How can I recharge my capacity so I can show up the way I want to show up? Because you deserve to feel good about yourself. You deserve to feel good in yourself, not just feeling like, oh, I'm functional today. Who wants to feel functional when you could feel good, when you could feel good about yourself, when you could feel great? And you can start that today. You can start small. I'm not asking you to do everything in this episode. I'm asking you to pick one thing. Pick the movement. It doesn't even have to be the 10-minute walk. It can be dancing around your kitchen or shaking out. Just shaking out all your nerves. Like just doing a physical shakedown. It can be the box breathing. 4 rounds of box breathing won't even take 2 minutes out of your day. Or it can be setting a consistent wake up time in the morning. Pick one, 7 days, stick with it, and trust that that small habit is enough. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and until next time, take care.